control of them all, and he plays them against each other to lead mankind to ruin. You just have to, you have to mark the distinctions in prophecy and rightly divide the word of truth. So in Isaiah 23, verse 15, it defines for us who Tyre is in this passage. It says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that Tyre shall be forgotten 70 years according to the days of one king, and at the end of 7 years shall Tyre sing as a harlot." Who is it in Bible prophecy that sings as a harlot? The papacy. Notice the next verse. "Take and harp, go about the city, thou harlot that has been forgotten, make sweet melody, sing many songs that thou mayest be remembered. And it shall come to pass after the end of 70 years that the Lord will visit Tyre, and shall turn her to her hire, and shall commit fornication with all the kingdoms of the world upon the face of the earth." Who is it that commits fornication with all the kings of the earth? The papacy. So in Isaiah 23, Tyre is another symbol for the papacy. Right? And she's forgotten for how long? 70 years. Okay? But that 70 years is defined as the days of one king. Let me show you something here very quickly. At Passover, in Acts 17, I really don't have time to go there, but I'll really lose you if I don't go there. So go to Acts 17. All right. Acts 13, verse 17. All right? Acts 13, verse 17. Paul stands up in verse 16. And I'm in Acts 13. Everyone with me? I'm going to start in verse 16 so you see a little bit of the context. It says, "Then Paul stood up and beckoning with his hand said, 'Men of Israel, and you that fear God, give audience. The God of this people Israel chose our fathers and exalted the people when they dwelt as strangers in the land of Egypt, and with a high arm he brought them out of it, and about the time of 40 years suffered he their manners in the wilderness.'" Okay, they're in Egypt here. And then he suffered him 40 years in the wilderness. You see that? The next verse says, "And when he had destroyed the 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he divided their land to them by lot. And after that he gave unto them judges about the space of 450 years until Samuel the prophet." After the 40 years, there was the space of 450 years until Samuel the prophet. So from Passover, this is Passover. This is when they come out of Egypt. You with me? There are 490 years to Samuel. And Samuel, one of the things that Samuel does is he anoints the first king. Who's the first king? And the Bible chronologists teach us from Saul, the first king, until Zedekiah, who was the last king, was 490 years. Okay. And then they were carried into captivity. Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar carries ancient Israel into captivity for how long? 70 years. And when does the 70 years end? When the handwriting's on the wall for Belshazzar, and that very night he was slain. This 70 years is the days of one king. Daniel chapter 2 says a king is a kingdom. This 70 years for ancient Israel is as the days of one king. Do you see that? You follow me? A king is a kingdom. Ancient Israel was captive in Babylon for 70 years during the time period that Babylon ruled the world. Are you with me? Are you with me? Okay, now what's the 490 years? Daniel 9:24 says 70 weeks are determined upon thy people in the holy city. And that word determined in Daniel 9:24 means cut off. 70 weeks equates to what? 490 years of probationary time was given to ancient Israel, and it concluded with the stoning of Stephen in AD 34. So the 490 years in Bible prophecy represents probationary time. You follow me? So before they're carried into captivity for 70 years, they have 2 490 years of probationary times that are marked in the Scriptures. Are you with me? Okay, this first 490 years, this is the time of the prophets. Okay, this is the time of the kings, from Saul to Zedekiah. So this period is state. This is church. I say that because here, in this history, it's a theocracy. God is ruling his people. But when you get to Samuel, right here, what did they want? And what did they reject? The Lord said to Samuel, they haven't rejected you, Samuel, they've rejected me. Okay, so you have a theocracy, which is church, and kings, which is state. You have 490 years probationary time for the church, 490 years probationary time for the state, followed by 70 years of captivity, which is the days of Babylon, the days of one king, one kingdom. Are you with me? Okay, now Seventh-day Adventists here at the end of the world, we no longer understand our foundational truths. Sister White says, brothers and sisters, that this chart was directed by the hand of the Lord and it should not be altered. Right here is the first time prophecy that William Miller ever came to understand. In early writings, page 74, the Lord held his hand over a mistake. Singular mistake in some of the figures. That's what Sister White says. And on page 236, I believe, of early writings, she explains what the mistake was. And she says, when the Lord moved his hand away, they discovered that the same evidence that had led them to identify 1843 as the conclusion of the prophecies was then recognized to prove that these prophecies ended in 1844. So Sister White specifically endorses the 2520 there in early writings, specifically and directly. They therefore made the new chart where the correction was made. The correction being 1844. But you'll notice, right up here, this is 677. It's still the 2520 time prophecy. This column here is the history of the 2520. And right down here, the 2520 is listed again. She says of this chart, the 1850 chart, that God was in the publishment of this chart. Okay? So what I'm saying is that most Seventh-day Adventists do not understand the 2520. You with me? Are you with me? Okay. So let me show you something. If you did understand the 2520, you would realize that there are two of them, one against the northern kingdom and one against the southern kingdom. One ends in 1798, the other ends in 1844. But the one against the northern kingdom that begins in 723, all right, it ends in 1798. And if you go to the dead center of that, you come to 538, which identifies 1,260 years that the papacy trampled down the sanctuary and the host. That's preceded by 1,260 years that paganism trampled down the sanctuary and the host. All right? And in Revelation 2, go to Revelation 2. Verse 21. Revelation 2, verse 21 is talking about Thyatira. It's talking about the papacy. And verse 21, it says, and I gave her, the papacy, space to repent of her fornication, and she repented not. The church of Thyatira in Revelation 2 is the papacy from 538 to 1798. This is Thyatira right here, brothers and sisters. And the verse says that she was given space to repent. What was the space that she was given to repent? The 1260. See, the 1260 is a probationary time. Okay? So when you understand the 2520, you realize that there's a probationary time and a probationary time. This is for the papacy. This is church. This is for paganism. This is state. They're reversed, but that's okay. This history here, it's paralleling this history. And in 1798, brothers and sisters, the papacy is forgotten for 70 years. Tyre is forgotten for 70 years. It's not a time prophecy. It's not a time prophecy. Time prophecy ends in 1844. But Isaiah 23 is telling us that the papacy is forgotten for 70 years, the days of one king. This 70 years, when Israel was in captivity, was the days of one kingdom, Babylon. So what is the time period from 1798 onward that the papacy is forgotten. What kingdom of Bible prophecy is ruling from 1798 until the papacy returns? Go back to your notes. We're on page 13. We're not making much headway here. Page 13. Big quote on the top of the page. You with me? Notice the last little paragraph on that quote, of those three quotes. Speaking of the papacy. I'm on page 13. The last sentence from the Great Controversy 563. After speaking of the papacy, it says, have these persons forgotten the claim of infallibility put forth for 800 years by this haughty power? Bible prophecy teaches that after 1798, Protestantism in the world forgets who the papacy is. She's forgotten. She's forgotten for 70 years, which is the days of one king. What kingdom of Bible prophecy comes into history in 1798? United States. This is the history of the United States. Okay, she's forgotten until the United States is overthrown. Notice the next quote, Great Controversy 441. What nation of the New World was in 1798 rising into power, giving promise of strength and greatness and attracting attention of the world? The application of the symbol admits no question. One nation, and only one, meets the specifications of this prophecy. It points unmistakably to the United States of America. While the United States is the sixth kingdom of Bible prophecy, everyone in the world gets tired. They forget who the king of the north. They forget who the papacy is. But when the papacy conquers the United States in Daniel 11, verse 41, at the Sunday law, then she begins to sing as a harlot and goes forth to commit fornication with the kings of the earth. Do you follow me? Okay. So we're now in the history of verse 40, and Rome's been forgotten. But at the Sunday law in the United States, the days of one king is over. And you have a secondary witness here with these two lines of prophecy. Do you see that these are parallel lines? This is the line of Jerusalem. This is the line of Babylon in Bible prophecy. Babylon is governed by Jerusalem. Okay, we're back to our notes. A lot of information, isn't it? Do you remember last night from Testimonies, Volume 9, that she places the context of the final fulfillment of Daniel 11? And there's like the second paragraph into that quote. She says the final movements will be rapid ones. And Daniel 11, verse 40, brothers and sisters, it was fulfilled in 1989. That's 22 years ago. The final movements will be rapid ones. The next movement is a Sunday law in the United States. The final movements will be rapid ones, and the first movement was in 1989. We're 20-some years into this final rapid movements, and the majority of Adventism does not understand the events connected with the close of probation. If what we're saying about these verses is true, then I have the responsibility to give you some information today, and I have to give a lot to you, because you need to come to grips with this message right away, because the final movements are rapid ones, and you're 20-some years behind the curve. Do you follow me? If what we're saying about these verses is true, then we have some work here to do today. Okay, so that's why I'm moving quickly. And it's being recorded where you can go back and test. Okay? Come against. We're dealing with verse 40. It says, in 1798, the king of atheism initiated a war against the papacy, and the papacy shall come against. What do these Hebrew words come against mean? It means come against as a whirlwind. You have the definition of these words under come against like a whirlwind. It says come to storm, hurl as a storm, be tempestuous, okay, like a tempest.